Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Yes, this is our second video. Yes, I'm following through with the program. Yes, I'm gonna keep uploading regularly. So can I get on with the video, please? Thank you. Okay, so today's topic is again going to be on the OnePlus NORD. Now some of you will go like, this dude spoke his heart and mind about the OnePlus NORD in the previous video, and he still got more to talk about it. He already convinced me not to get the device. What more can he say? Well, now when you've decided not to get the OnePlus Nord, what other devices do you choose from? Now, with this fast-paced lifestyle, not everybody has a time to do the research about all the different companies and all the submodels through them, and categorizing everything and making a decisive decision. So I'll do that for you. So I've gone through all the companies, all the submodels, all the price points, and the advantages and disadvantages of each feature, and I'll walk you through the process of thought that you need to have when you are fixing a budget and choose the device that is the best value for money for specs, performance, usability, longevity. So let's get started. So let's start off with the budget. So if you had your mind on the OnePlus Nord, your budget was around 28 to 30,000 rupees. There are a few devices that come under that price point and a few devices that come over the price point. I don't want to go over the budget because that slowly starts creeping into another price point, and that's a whole another story and a whole set of new devices. So I'll keep the hard budget at 30,000 rupees. So everything below 30,000 rupees, and I'll consider it in this list. So what does the list become now? So I'll start off with Samsung with the A70s and the A71, followed by the A51. So three models in the Samsung lineup. The A70s is 28,000 rupees, the A71 is 30,000, so I'm just tickling the budget, and the A51 is at 24,000 and 26,000 for two storage variants. Coming on to Vivo, we have the V17 at 22,500 and 24,500 for the different models. Then comes the Oppo Reno 3 Pro, which is at 30,000 for the base model and 33,000 for the upgraded version. I'm not going to consider the upgraded version because it's just a storage bump. Then comes the Nord, it's at 28,000 and 30,000 respectively. Now the remaining is the Redmi K20 non-Pro model. It starts at 29,000 and 32,000. I'm going to ignore the 32,000. And finally the Realme X3 at 25,000 and 26,000. The X3 Super Zoom at 28,000 and 33,000. Again, I'm gonna ignore anything above 30. And the X2 Pro at 30,000 exactly, and 32 and 36,000. So the last two models are gonna go. So these are all the phones that are under the budget and are competing against the Nord directly in price. So what do I do next? So the first criteria I use is performance, and by performance I mean the Snapdragon 675 and the Exynos 9611 present in the A70s and the A51 respectively, because these are not the best performing processors. The Exynos especially is even worse than the 675, and the 675 is the budget variant of the Snapdragon lineup. So round 1, both of these phones are out. Coming on to round 2, as we are in the later part of 2020, anything that came up in 2019 is out, because the software support of the device comes from the date of manufacture, not from the date of purchase. So if it was 2 plus 1, on Android, which is typically hoped for flagship devices, and I don't know how much that budget devices are going to follow through, but I'm gonna be a bit optimistic and hold them to that. So if I'm going to consider this from 2019, these devices are gone. The Vivo V17 is out, the Redmi K20 is out, the X2 Pro is out, the Samsung A71 is out, and oh, I forgot to mention that I had an Asus 6Z also in the list, which is also out. So now, how many devices remain? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So coming on to round 3, there are only 4 devices and no Samsung devices in sight, which is not surprising. So the 4 devices are the Reno 3 Pro, OnePlus NORD obviously, the Realme X3 and the X3 Super Zoom. So now I'm gonna have a deeper dive on these 4 devices to compare them for each and every bit, so that we know that they can last. In the top 4 contenders come forth, we have the Oppo Reno 3 Pro in one corner, OnePlus NORD in the other corner, and the X3 and the X3 Super Zoom holding on the other half of the court. So let's start off the showdown with the specs. The Oppo Reno 3 Pro has the MediaTek Helio P95 SoC. The OnePlus NORD has the Snapdragon 765G SoC, and the Realme X3 and the X3 Super Zoom both have the Snapdragon 855 Plus. So you can see who's gonna win this round easily. The Snapdragon 855 Plus is a previous generation flagship, but it was a flagship nonetheless, and it demolishes both the MediaTek and the 765G. But incidentally, the MediaTek and the 765G are not that far from each other. They have roughly similar performances with about a 10% delta depending on the benchmarking app, but the 855 Plus is a lot more powerful and will last you a lot more longer in the long term. So this is a win for the Realme phones. Coming on to the displays, all 3 phones are huge. The Oppo Reno 3 Pro has a 6.4 inch 1080p by 2400 display. The OnePlus NORD has a 6.44 1080p into 2400 pixel display. The Realme's also have a 1080p by 2400 pixel display, so that's a lot more similar than I would have hoped. But I think that's where the similarities end, because all 3 of them are different manufacturers and have different software launchers. The Realme uses Realme UI, the OnePlus uses Oxygen OS, and Oppo uses Color OS 7. So you will have a difference in usage, but if you don't like any of them, you can always switch to a new launcher of your choice. Now coming on to build quality, the Oppo Reno 3 Pro is completely plastic. It is plastic rails, plastic back. The OnePlus NORD is a glass sandwich with plastic rails, and same goes for the Realme X3 and the X3 Super Zoom, which are a glass sandwich with plastic rails. I'm seeing a trend here with plastic usage. This is mostly to keep the price down and give you better internals. So let's go forward. Coming on to specific features that look good to me are the X3 and the X3 Super Zoom have a 120Hz refresh rate display, while the OnePlus NORD has a 90Hz refresh rate. Oppo does not have a specified refresh rate, so by default it will be 60. So it does lose a point there, but the Realme is taking it away over here. It has 2 wins already, and it seems like it's a clear-cut winner until we get the cameras. Now I haven't used any of these cameras, so I'm going based off specs here. The cameras are an interesting thing over here, with the Reno 3 Pro having a 64 megapixel main camera, a 13 megapixel telephoto zoom, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. Now you already know what I think about the depth camera, so I'm not gonna count that. So it has 3 cameras at the back with 4K 30 recording capabilities, and when you switch to the front, it has a 44 megapixel wide camera and a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and the main camera can do 1080p 30. So that is a bit of a downside, because I already know that the NORD can do 4K 60 with the selfie camera, so that's a bit of a downer on the Oppo Reno 3. Coming on to the OnePlus, it has a 48 megapixel main sensor, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, a 5 megapixel depth, and a 2 megapixel macro camera at the back. Again, the depth and the macro I'm gonna count. So it has 2 usable cameras and can do 4K 30. The selfie cameras are a 32MP wide and an 8MP ultra wide, with the main camera doing 4K 60. This is a plus point for OnePlus. Coming on to the Realme X3, it has a 64 megapixel, oh, again matching it with the Oppo Reno 3 Pro, and a 12 megapixel telephoto zoom, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro. Now come on, remove that from the list. We don't count that. And the main camera can do 4K 60. That's a plus point, because the OnePlus cannot do 4K 60 with the rear cameras. Now coming on to the selfie camera, this is by far the weakest of the 3. A 44 megapixel for the Reno and the 32 megapixel for the OnePlus, and just a 16 megapixel wide with an 8 megapixel ultra wide. Interesting. And it can do only 1080p 30, which loses to the NORD. Now coming on to how these devices perform, I have no idea, because I haven't used any of them. I'm just basing them off specs, and currently I can just ignore the Reno 3 because it doesn't stack up against the NORD and the Realme. So the final question is, which one of these two should you buy? The Reno 3 is a good device and it has come third, but it has no crown. So the crown either goes to the NORD or the Realme X3 or its sister Realme X3 Super Zoom. But that's for you to decide, because you have to feel the device in your hand and understand how it feels, how the UI feels, because the Realme is a skinned UI. The OnePlus keeps it as close to stock Android as possible, and the cameras are all over the place, but in performance the Realme wins. So if you want a device that performs well and will last you more than the 3 years of support that you are going to have, I understand you can't keep buying phones every 3 years, but if you are more of a camera guy or a camera person who uses the camera a lot, then your preferences will shift a bit more towards the OnePlus. So I'm going to leave this up to you. Let me know which device you are thinking of buying or which way you're swaying, and tell me if I missed any device in this lineup. And that's it, I guess. Hopefully this video helped. I'll see you guys again soon. Peace. If you like this video, give it a like, get subscribed, click the bell icon to receive notification of more of my videos, and comment down below if you have any more queries or questions you'd like me to answer. Stay safe, stay indoors. Peace.